It was the moment everyone had been waiting for, but no one could have prepared for the way it would unfold. The courtroom felt like a pressure cooker, each passing second a heavy weight on the shoulders of those inside. Sarah Mitchell, only 12 years old, sat in her wheelchair, hands trembling as they clutched the leash of her German shepherd, Thor. The dog, ever vigilant, stood steadfast by her side, his powerful frame betraying a sense of calm that belied the storm brewing in the room. Today wasn't just any hearing. It was the day that would determine whether the young girl would have to say goodbye to the one living thing that had helped her piece her life back together. Her protector, her best friend, her reason for hope. The tension in the air was thick, and every breath felt labored as Judge Harrison prepared to deliver the ruling. His pen clicked on the table, sending a ripple of anxiety through the room. Welcome to the HeartForce channel, where you and I find more meaning in life through stories about dogs. Before we continue, please comment below and let us know where you are listening to this video. And if you have any dog stories of your own, feel free to share them with everyone. Thor's presence was almost a guarantee of strength, but even he couldn't fully prepare for what was about to unfold. The dog's posture shifted abruptly, his ears flattening as a low, warning growl rumbled from deep within his chest. It was unlike any sound the courtroom had ever heard, as if a primal force had risen from the depths of his training. The growl grew louder, a clear sign that something was wrong, something that made Thor's usually composed demeanor shift from protective to urgently defensive. Sarah's heart pounded, her grip tightening on the leash. She knew this growl, recognized it from the countless times Thor had alerted to her seizures or anxiety attacks. But this was different. The air in the room seemed to change, charged with an energy none could deny. Thor's eyes locked on the back of the courtroom, where the heavy wooden doors were slowly creaking open, as if in slow motion. Fear gripped the room. For a brief moment, no one moved, no one spoke, and then, as if on cue, the doors swung open. What followed would shock everyone, leaving the entire courtroom in stunned silence. The tragic accident that brought Sarah and Thor together had happened nearly 2 years ago. On a rainy Tuesday evening, the Mitchell family's car spun out of control on Highway 23. The wreckage left 12-year-old Sarah orphaned and confined to a wheelchair, a tragic twist of fate that no one could have predicted. The doctors had called her survival miraculous, but for Sarah, waking up without her parents felt like the worst kind of punishment. Sarah's grandmother, Eleanor, became her sole guardian. Eleanor, already struggling with mounting medical bills and a fixed income, was now tasked with raising her granddaughter alone. It was a heavy burden, but it was one she would carry with fierce determination. In the days that followed, the dark cloud of grief and loss hung over Sarah, who retreated into the confines of her room. She was broken, consumed by the weight of her sorrow. The world outside seemed cruel and unwelcoming, especially when it came to her wheelchair. The simple tasks that were once second nature now felt insurmountable. But then, through an unexpected program, Thor entered their lives. Thor was no ordinary dog. A German shepherd, the loyal companion to military service members overseas. He had earned numerous commendations for his remarkable ability to detect threats, protect his unit, and offer unwavering loyalty. But it wasn't just his skill set that made him special. It was his ability to heal, a gift that would change Sarah's life forever. Thor's transformation from a military service dog to a personal companion was a fluke. During a routine physical therapy session, Thor's calm presence had caught Sarah's attention. He moved with a quiet grace, steadying her when she struggled with tasks, and quietly alerting her when a panic attack threatened to overwhelm her. With every passing day, Thor's presence became more than just a tool for independence. It became the anchor to Sarah's sanity. Her grandmother watched in awe as Sarah slowly began to emerge from her grief. The girl who once hid behind her walls of pain now found herself sketching again. She had always loved drawing, but the images on her pages were no longer dark and chaotic. With Thor by her side, her artwork was alive with color and light, filled with hope and new beginnings. But just as they had begun to settle into their new life, the military had made its move. The policies governing the use of service animals had changed, and Thor, despite the undeniable bond he shared with Sarah, was recalled for active duty. The military cited regulations and national security concerns. To them, Thor was a piece of property, government property, with no room for sentiment. The battle for Thor's return to Sarah's side was about to begin, and the stakes could not have been higher. The day Eleanor received the official letter from the military was the day Sarah's world started to crumble. The letter, adorned with military insignia, seemed almost too official to bear. As Eleanor read the words aloud, her voice trembled, barely able to finish the letter. The military had invoked Section 8.14 of their regulations, demanding the return of Thor for active duty. They gave them only 48 hours to comply. How can they do this? Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible as she sat at the kitchen table, staring at the letter that had just torn apart everything she had worked so hard to rebuild. Thor lay beside her, his head resting gently on her lap. But even the dog's calm presence couldn't prevent the panic rising in Sarah's chest. The room felt suffocating, the weight of the decision pressing down on her like the air itself had thickened. She had already lost so much: her parents, her ability to walk, her life as she had known it. And now, it seemed, she was about to lose Thor, the only constant in her new, shattered world. Eleanor watched helplessly as her granddaughter's face contorted in pain, but there was no time for tears. They had to fight. Eleanor would not stand by and watch Sarah lose the one thing that had brought her back from the edge of despair. Not without a fight. Over the next few days, Eleanor made frantic phone calls, first to veterans organizations, then to local politicians, anyone who might be able to help. Some expressed sympathy, but most offered little more than kind words. The reality was harsh. The military's policies on service dogs were strict, and there seemed little room for exceptions. Still, Eleanor didn't back down. She refused to let go of the hope that there was someone out there who would help them. The turning point came one evening when Eleanor received a call from Jennifer Matthews, a lawyer known for taking on impossible cases. Jennifer had seen the story in the local news. Sarah and Thor's bond had caught the attention of the community. The battle had begun to spread beyond their small town, and Jennifer, moved by their story, offered to take on the case. But there was a catch. She warned Eleanor that the cost of the legal battle could be astronomical. The only way she could afford it was by selling her wedding ring, the last piece of her old life. Without hesitation, Eleanor agreed. The courtroom battle began with Sarah and Thor at its center. The tension was palpable as Jennifer Matthews stood beside Sarah's wheelchair, her professional demeanor masking the anxiety she felt. The room was filled with onlookers, veterans, local supporters, and journalists eager to witness the outcome of this unprecedented case. Sarah's voice shook as she took the stand, recounting her life with Thor. Before Thor, I couldn't sleep. I was scared of everything. But with him, I can face the day. He's more than a dog to me. He's my best friend. She paused, her eyes locking with Thor's as he gently nudged her hand, offering comfort. The military's lawyer, Major Douglas Wilson, countered with the harsh reality of regulations. He acknowledged that Sarah's attachment to Thor was understandable, but argued that Thor's role was to serve the military, not a civilian child. The stakes were high for the military as well. Thor had been a part of 3 combat tours and was highly trained, a significant investment of taxpayer dollars. Major Wilson's argument was clear. Thor belonged to the military, and nothing could change that. Jennifer countered with Sarah's testimony, presenting medical records, therapy assessments, and statement from Sarah's doctors that highlighted the life-changing impact Thor had on her recovery. The court was divided. On one side, there were the cold, hard regulations of the military. On the other, there was the irrefutable bond between Sarah and Thor, one that had brought a broken girl back to life. The case took a turn when Sarah's physical therapist, Dr. Emily Parker, testified about the incredible improvements she had witnessed in Sarah since Thor entered her life. I've been practicing for over 20 years, Dr. Parker said, her voice steady but emotional. But I've never seen a bond like this. Thor doesn't just help Sarah. He anticipates her needs. He's part of her recovery. He's irreplaceable. The audience in the courtroom was moved. They could see it, the unspoken connection between Sarah and Thor. But the military remained unmoved. Thor was, to them, a tool for war, not for healing. Just when it seemed like the case would drag on without resolution, an unexpected breakthrough arrived. Jennifer Matthews was reviewing Thor's military records one night when she noticed something odd. Several months of training records were missing, entire chunks of time unaccounted for. Even more concerning, the names of Thor's previous handlers seemed to vanish without explanation. Jennifer dug deeper, pulling at threads that no one else had bothered to follow. What if there's more to this than we know? Jennifer said, her voice quiet but certain as she spoke to Eleanor over coffee. What if Thor isn't just a military asset? What if someone's been hiding something? The clues were there, buried beneath layers of bureaucracy and regulation. As the investigation continued, the stakes grew higher. This wasn't just about keeping a girl with her service dog. It was about uncovering the truth behind Thor's military service and the secrets that had been kept from the public. The community, once divided, began to unite behind Sarah. Support for Thor's return grew. Local businesses put up signs declaring their stance. Save Thor. Students at Roosevelt Middle School wore T-shirts with Thor's face, rallying around their classmate. The local diner started a meal train to support Eleanor, while the retired postman organized a neighborhood watch to keep an eye on the strange car that had been parked across their street for days. But the battle was far from over. The military, entrenched in its position, wasn't about to let go of Thor without a fight. The battle had reached a fever pitch. What began as a quiet legal dispute had now become a full-blown public spectacle. The story of Sarah and Thor, the girl and her dog, was no longer just about a service animal. It had become a symbol of what it means to care for one another, to heal, and to fight against the systems that treat lives as numbers. The entire town had divided into factions. Some supported Sarah and Thor, recognizing the invaluable bond they shared, while others remained firmly behind the military, believing that duty and protocol should take precedence over emotion. The courtroom became the battleground. Sarah sat in her wheelchair, Thor by her side, his presence almost regal as he remained still, ever watchful, ever vigilant. It had been weeks since the case began, and the strain was evident on Sarah's face. She had lost weight. Her shoulders slumped with the weight of the battle. Her nightmares, once rare, were now frequent, and her panic attacks had returned with a vengeance. One particular day, Sarah had suffered a terrifying anxiety attack in the school cafeteria. She had been surrounded by her classmates, trying to eat lunch when the world suddenly became too much to bear. Her breath quickened, her heart raced, and she could hear the noise around her grow louder, more oppressive. The walls seemed to close in. It was in moments like these, when everything felt like it was unraveling, that she cried out for Thor. But he wasn't there. He was no longer allowed on school grounds. By the time the nurse arrived, Sarah was inconsolable, her sobs racking her frail body. She couldn't stop the tears, the overwhelming fear that now governed her life. The school had taken Thor away, the one thing that had given her peace. And in his absence, Sarah felt lost again. The incident only strengthened the resolve of the school board. They now saw Sarah's dependency on Thor as a problem rather than a solution. Her reliance on the dog, they argued, was making her more vulnerable, not less. Eleanor watched helplessly as Sarah withdrew again, the progress they had made together unraveling in mere days. Her hope was slipping through her fingers. "We'll fight this," Eleanor promised, but her voice betrayed her. Even she wasn't sure anymore. Thor was more than a dog. He was Sarah's life raft in an ocean of fear. He had pulled her back from the edge of despair time and time again. But the military's decision to recall him, citing national security concerns and the potential value of his military training, had triggered a series of events that now seemed unstoppable. Days later, the military sent an official notice. Thor was to be surrendered within 48 hours. It felt like a cruel joke. Thor had already given more than his fair share in service to his country. His training, his dedication, and his ability to save lives overseas were beyond reproach. But none of that mattered to the military. They saw Thor only as a tool, a resource, and to them, his bond with Sarah was irrelevant. Eleanor knew it wasn't just about keeping a dog with her granddaughter anymore. It was about standing up for Sarah's future. She couldn't let them take Thor away, not without giving everything she had to stop it. She needed to find a way to make the world see that Thor was more than just a soldier. He was a healer, and he had saved Sarah's life in ways no one could measure. But the fight was getting harder. Local politicians expressed sympathy but offered no real help. The few lawyers who were willing to take the case demanded astronomical fees. The situation felt hopeless. The tipping point came the next day when Eleanor staged a small protest outside the military base, holding a sign that read, "Local girl fights to keep military dog." The image of Sarah, sitting in her wheelchair with Thor faithfully by her side, spread across the media, touching hearts everywhere. The image resonated deeply with the community and beyond. Messages of support flooded in, and more people began to rally behind them. But with the support came opposition. Military families, veterans, and those who viewed duty as paramount to everything else argued passionately for the military's right to recall Thor. They said he belonged to the nation, that his training was too valuable to be left in civilian hands. As the legal battle raged on, the tension in Sarah's life became unbearable. Her panic attacks intensified. The school became a battleground where she was now seen as a liability, and her once steadfast courage began to falter. It wasn't just the loss of Thor that haunted her. It was the loss of her sense of safety, the foundation she had worked so hard to build with him. Without him, nothing felt secure. Eleanor, too, felt the weight of their fight. She watched Sarah shrink further into herself, retreating from a world that had already taken so much from her. Her medical team documented the effects of the battle: declining health, an increase in anxiety, and the emotional toll of losing her only source of comfort. The girl who had once started to dream again was now closing herself off. The community, however, wasn't backing down. The story had struck a chord with many who understood the value of service dogs, not just in combat, but in the everyday battles that people faced. More businesses joined the fight, displaying signs in their windows that read, "Save Thor," and "Support military dogs." A local coffee shop started a petition. The town began to speak with one voice, but it was still uncertain whether it would be enough. The final blow came when the military sent a representative, Sergeant Phillips, to evaluate Thor's condition. Sarah tried to explain that Thor wasn't just a set of skills. "He knows when I'm going to have a bad day before I do," she told him, fighting back tears. "He helps me be brave when everything feels scary." The sergeant's eyes softened for a moment, but his response remained cold and professional. "I understand this is difficult, but Thor's skills could save lives in the field. His value isn't just to you." The sergeant's response was the same one that echoed through the halls of the military. Thor was more valuable in the field than he ever could be in civilian life. But Eleanor knew it was more than that. Thor wasn't just a soldier. He was a healer, and no matter how hard they fought, she was determined to make the world see that. The courtroom was packed as the case reached its most critical juncture. Sarah sat with her grandmother Eleanor by her side, Thor standing resolutely beside her wheelchair. The tension in the air was palpable, a storm of emotions brewing as each side prepared to make their final arguments. The military had dug in its heels, determined to reclaim Thor as a military asset, while Jennifer Matthews, the lawyer fighting for Sarah's right to keep her beloved dog, had spent the last few weeks tirelessly gathering evidence to demonstrate the dog's irreplaceable role in Sarah's life. Every inch of Sarah's body screamed with anxiety. Her grip on Thor's leash tightened, her knuckles white as she took slow, steady breaths, trying to find calm in the storm surrounding her. She had come so far with Thor at her side. He had been her constant, her protector, and her guide through the darkest moments of her life. But now she could feel it, the uncertainty creeping back, threatening to engulf her once more. Jennifer Matthews stood beside Sarah's wheelchair, her voice strong but laced with the weight of the battle ahead. She knew the military had the upper hand in terms of resources and influence, but she also knew that this case wasn't just about property rights. It was about humanity. It was about Sarah's future and the profound bond she shared with Thor. This bond wasn't just emotional. It was life-saving, transformative, and healing in ways that the cold, clinical measures of military protocol could never fully understand. As Jennifer began her closing argument, she turned to the judge, her voice unwavering. "Your Honor, we are not asking for special treatment. We are asking for what's right for a child who has already lost so much. Thor is not just a military asset. He is a critical part of Sarah's recovery, a lifeline that has helped her heal in ways that no doctor or medication ever could. The bond between them is irreplaceable. Separating them would not only harm Sarah emotionally, it could set her recovery back by months, maybe even years." The courtroom was silent, every eye fixed on Jennifer as she spoke from the heart. But it was Sarah's testimony that struck the deepest chord. She wheeled herself forward, her voice small but steady. "Thor is more than a dog. He's been with me through everything. When I lost my parents, I didn't just lose my family, I lost the world. Thor brought me back. He helped me walk again, he helped me talk again. He's not just my dog, he's my family." Her words hung in the air, her voice trembling with emotion. The courtroom was filled with a collective murmur, and even some of the military personnel couldn't hide their reactions. Sarah had opened their eyes to a truth they hadn't wanted to acknowledge. Thor was more than just a trained animal. He was a companion, a healer, and a guardian. But the military was not swayed so easily. Major Douglas Wilson, the military's lawyer, rose to counter. "While we understand the emotional attachment to Thor, we must remember that he is military property. His skills are vital to the safety of our nation. His training, his ability to protect and detect threats cannot be overlooked. His value in the field far outweighs his role in civilian life." Wilson's voice rang with the cold, hard logic of duty, but Sarah wasn't listening. Her eyes were on Thor, who stood beside her, his gaze calm but alert. His presence was her anchor, grounding her in the midst of the chaos swirling around them. The case had already begun to shift in unexpected ways. The tide was turning in Sarah's favor, not just in the courtroom, but in the court of public opinion. The media had latched onto the story, portraying it as a battle between duty and compassion. The town was no longer divided. People who had once opposed Sarah's fight for Thor now found themselves supporting her. Business owners displayed "Save Thor" signs in their windows. Veterans rallied behind her cause, and even the school, once hostile to the presence of a service dog, had begun to reconsider its stance. It wasn't just the emotional testimony that was swaying opinions. As the legal battle unfolded, a pattern began to emerge that could no longer be ignored. Former military handlers who had worked with Thor came forward, some at great personal risk. They shared stories of how Thor had been a source of comfort and healing for them, especially after returning from combat. They testified that his role wasn't just in the field, it was in the lives of those who needed him most. One former handler, Master Sergeant James Peterson, spoke with conviction. "I've worked with Thor in combat zones, and I've seen him do things that no human could do. But what he's done for Sarah, that's something else. He's not just a soldier. He's a healer, and I've seen that with my own eyes." The military's stance had begun to unravel. What had once been a matter of policy was now a matter of ethics. Could they continue to justify recalling a dog who had proven to be more valuable in civilian life than in the military? Could they continue to defend the notion that Thor's bond with Sarah was irrelevant when the evidence showed just how crucial it was to her survival? The turning point came when an unexpected piece of evidence surfaced. Late one night, Jennifer was going through Thor's military records when she noticed something strange. There were discrepancies in his training history, gaps in time, missing records, and vague references to his past handlers. What had been hidden? Or were they not telling her? As Jennifer dug deeper, she uncovered a startling truth. Thor hadn't just been trained as a service dog. He had been part of a covert program designed to train dogs for specialized civilian roles, including medical and therapeutic support. Jennifer's heart raced as the implications hit her. "This changes everything," she whispered, her voice tinged with disbelief. Thor wasn't just trained for military service. He was meant for something bigger, something that would save lives, not just in combat, but in everyday life. The military's case was beginning to crumble, and the momentum was shifting in Sarah's favor. The town, once divided, was rallying around Sarah and Thor. The community's support was overwhelming, and even some military families who had initially supported the military's position were beginning to change their minds. The final blow came during a surprise testimony. Dr. Emily Parker, Sarah's physical therapist, spoke passionately about Thor's impact on Sarah's recovery. "In all my years of practice, I've never seen a dog bond with a patient like Thor has with Sarah. He's not just a service animal, he's a lifeline. His presence has allowed Sarah to move forward in ways that no one thought possible." With each new revelation, the military's position weakened. What had been a battle about property rights was now a battle about what truly mattered: the healing power of love, the value of companionship, and the undeniable bond between a girl and her dog. The morning of the final hearing arrived, a crisp chill in the air as the courthouse came alive with anticipation. A sea of faces filled the gallery, some familiar, others unknown, but all with one thing in common: the fight for Sarah and Thor. The atmosphere in the courtroom was electric, charged with a blend of hope, fear, and uncertainty. The battle that had started as a simple custody dispute was now a fight for what was right, not just for Sarah and Thor, but for every person who believed in the power of love, healing, and the bond between a dog and a human. Sarah sat in her wheelchair, Thor at her side, his posture calm yet alert. His training, honed in military service, was evident in every movement. He remained by her side, as he had for the past 2 years, ever vigilant and protective. But today his role was different. Today he was not just a service dog. He was a symbol of resilience, of healing, and of the unbreakable bond that had transformed Sarah's life. Judge Harrison entered the courtroom, his expression stern, but there was a quiet understanding in his eyes. He surveyed the room, taking in the gravity of the situation. This case had become bigger than any of them could have anticipated. It was no longer about military regulations or property rights. It was about humanity, compassion, and the profound impact one dog could have on a young girl's life. "Before we begin," Judge Harrison said, his voice cutting through the tension, "I want to remind everyone that this court will maintain order. We are here today not just to settle a legal dispute, but to determine what is best for a child in need and a service animal who has become a vital part of her recovery." Jennifer Matthews, Sarah's lawyer, stood beside the young girl, her composure unshaken but her heart racing with the weight of the moment. "Your Honor," she began, "today is not just about property law. This case is about the healing power of the bond between Sarah and Thor. Thor has helped Sarah regain what she thought she had lost forever. He has taught her to live again, to hope again. The evidence before you shows that their connection goes beyond the physical. It's therapeutic. It's life-saving." The military's attorney, Major Douglas Wilson, stood in contrast, his tone professional but cold. "While we understand the emotional attachment to Thor, we must not lose sight of the bigger picture. Thor is a military asset, trained to protect and serve. His skills are invaluable in the field, where lives are on the line. We cannot allow personal attachments to dictate military policy." Wilson's words hung in the air, but Sarah's voice broke through. She wheeled herself forward, her gaze steady and unwavering. "Thor saved me. When I lost my parents, I lost everything. I didn't just lose my family, I lost myself. But Thor helped me find the strength to keep going. He's not just a dog, he's my family." Her words echoed in the courtroom, and even the military's staunchest supporters couldn't ignore the truth she spoke. The bond between Sarah and Thor wasn't something that could be quantified on a chart or measured by military standards. It was something deeper, something that transcended the rigid structures of bureaucracy. The court fell into a tense silence as Sarah's physical therapist, Dr. Emily Parker, took the stand. "In my 20 years of practice, I have never seen a dog make such a profound impact on a patient's recovery," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thor isn't just helping Sarah manage her disability. He is helping her heal emotionally. His ability to anticipate her needs, to sense when she's struggling, has allowed her to push beyond the limits she once thought were impossible." As Dr. Parker spoke, the images of Sarah's artwork were displayed for the court to see. The early sketches, dark and chaotic, gave way to vibrant, hopeful scenes. Scenes where Thor was always by her side. The transformation was undeniable. But the most powerful moment came when Master Sergeant James Peterson, one of Thor's former handlers, took the stand. He spoke with quiet conviction, his voice tinged with the weight of his years in combat. "I served with Thor in the field. I've seen him save lives, I've seen him protect soldiers. But what I've seen him do for Sarah, that's something else. Thor isn't just a military asset. He's a healer. And what he's done for her is worth more than any mission." His words struck like a thunderclap in the courtroom. The military's position had shifted. The bond between Sarah and Thor was no longer something they could ignore. But even as the case seemed to be turning in their favor, the military wasn't ready to give up just yet. The tension was palpable as Major Wilson continued to defend his position. "While we understand the bond, the fact remains that Thor is a valuable resource. His military training is too important to be wasted on civilian life." Just as the battle seemed to reach its peak, an unexpected turn of events unfolded. Thor, ever watchful, suddenly grew alert. His ears flattened, and a low growl rumbled from his chest. The courtroom fell silent as the tension in the room shifted. Sarah's hand instinctively reached for Thor's fur, her touch grounding him. She knew this growl. It wasn't just a sign of aggression. It was a warning. "Is everything all right with the dog?" Judge Harrison asked, his voice filled with concern. Before anyone could respond, Thor barked sharply, his body tense and alert. The room froze as Officer Brooks, the courthouse security guard, stepped forward. "There's a man outside causing a disturbance," he said quietly, his hand near his weapon. Thor's growl intensified as the doors to the courtroom opened, revealing a man with forged military credentials, demanding to testify about Thor's service record. He was quickly apprehended, but his presence had already made its mark. The courtroom had witnessed firsthand Thor's protective instincts, his ability to detect threats, not just for Sarah, but for everyone in the room. The military's stance shifted once more. Major Wilson, now visibly shaken, stood and addressed the court. "In light of recent events, the military wishes to modify its position," he said. "Thor's ability to detect threats while maintaining his role as Sarah's service dog has demonstrated his value beyond traditional military service. We propose that Thor remain with Sarah, but with a new designation as a civilian service specialist." The room erupted in applause. The battle was won. Thor would stay with Sarah, not as a military asset, but as a civilian service dog, a symbol of the changing tide in both military policy and the way society viewed the bond between humans and animals. As Sarah and Thor left the courthouse, the weight of the past few months seemed to lift. Their bond had withstood every obstacle, every challenge, and now they stood together, ready to face whatever came next. The fight for Thor was more than just about keeping a dog. It was about the healing power of love, the strength found in the most unlikely places, and the reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. As Sarah wheeled herself through the courthouse doors, Thor beside her, she whispered to him, "We did it, boy." And with that, they stepped into the future, a future they would face together as family. The story of Sarah and Thor is one of resilience, love, and the incredible bond between a girl and her service dog. It's a reminder that sometimes, The greatest battles we face are not about rules or regulations, but about standing up for what truly matters. The power of connection and the strength to overcome even the most impossible challenges. In our own lives, we can draw strength from those who support us unconditionally, just as Sarah drew strength from Thor. Their story teaches us that the power of love and loyalty can heal wounds that no one else can see, and that sometimes the greatest victories are the ones that come from the heart. What do you think about Sarah and Thor's journey? How has their story inspired you? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the HeartForce channel for more heartwarming stories like this one.